But no one's really asking the important questions here. Like, why? Why in the world are we lending tens of thousands of dollars to an 18-year-old? Why? Why in the world are we lending tens of thousands of dollars to an 18-year-old? Why? Like, if you've ever gotten a car loan or bought a house with the loan, you know what it is like to have to jump through many hoops to try and get approved for a loan. They need your job history, credit report, down payment, tons of tax information and fees and all that good stuff. Keep in mind, there's a chance you might not even get approved. Then how is it that someone fresh out of high school can borrow over $50,000 with no credit history, no cosign, no job history, with less effort? Who is lending them this money and why? Turns out the way this crisis began is most businesses have the sense to know you not ought to lend out money to people who can't pay it back. That is, unless you're in the student loan business. The primary reason this happened is that unlike a car loan or home loan, where the bank can take your home if you can't make payments, with student loans, if you can't make payments, it's too bad. What are they going to do? Take your education from you? So for this reason, among others, you cannot declare bankruptcy on them. Normally, when banks loan money out, they'll determine the amount of money they're willing to give you and your interest rate based on the likelihood that you'll pay them back. But with federally subsidized student loans, your interest rates are fixed, and whether or not you're realistically able to pay off the loan isn't even taken into account before it is given to you. This means people are able to borrow way more than they can pay back, and colleges raise their prices as a result. The moment students could get loans so they didn't have to pay out of pocket was the moment universities began raising their prices. If you were in charge of a university, why wouldn't you? With people taking out loans left and right, plus you literally have zero risk if the student doesn't pay back, because they can't go bankrupt, leaving the government with the bill. If you own a car dealership, for example, and the government promises to pay for everyone's car, why wouldn't you try to charge $100,000 for a Corolla? Colleges immediately noticed this was a cash cow, and milk away they did. This began a vicious cycle of people taking out loans, universities raising tuition costs, people taking out more loans to cover the cost of rising tuition, causing universities to raise tuition farther, causing students to take out more loans since there are only so many seats a university has to offer, leading to bloated universities with bloated administration, unnecessary degrees, and things like rock climbing walls and golf courses. The federal government doesn't even use standard loan practices. They are freed from the norms and values of prudent lending. The federal government began to lend hundreds of billions of dollars to students without even assessing the risk of those loans. Universities, meanwhile, were operating under their own incentives, eager to enroll more and more students and tap the well of federal dollars, and facing no consequences when students defaulted. Universities began to lower academic standards to increase enrollment. The result, an explosion in student loan delinquency. Delinquency has fallen especially hard on lower-income Americans. Financial institutions lobbied the government to make it next to impossible to declare bankruptcy on your student loans. You can meet triple the criteria to declare bankruptcy on a home loan, but if your loan went by the name of a student loan, well then your odds were slim to none.
But based on statistics, according to the Institute of College Access and Success, 71% of students who graduate college are in student loan debt.
Once the colleges saw that all these kids could borrow money to go to college, well, they were like, this is great. I'm just going to raise prices. So all of a sudden, tuition started to go up. I mean, for a long time, you can look back in the future, in history, college tuition used to be pretty stable. It didn't go up very much until the 60s, until the government really got involved. And so as soon as these colleges saw that the kids had access to all this money, they started jacking up prices. And then, of course, the universities started competing. Who's got the best gymnasium? Who's got the best, housing? All kinds of other incentives. And then everything became bloated, and they kept raising their prices. And then, in order to get the votes of the students, the government kept raising the limits on how much loans they would guarantee. So it became this self-perpetuating cycle where the more money the government guaranteed that the students can borrow, the more the colleges could charge in tuition.
Oh,
and so tuition kept skyrocketing. And then as tuition goes up, it's like, oh, nobody can afford to go to college. We need more loans. So the loans themselves became the reason that people needed the loans, because the loans were why college was so expensive. And so now you needed a loan to go to college. But without the loan, tuition would have come down. You see, if there were no student loans at all, and right now the government has actually taken over, they don't just guarantee student loans, they loan directly to the students. If there were no student loans at all, if the government just said no more student loans, all of a sudden the colleges would be, oh my God, we need to cut costs. Otherwise, we'll have no customers.
Just to play devil's advocate and not just attack colleges, one fundamental reason for the aggregate increase in college tuition is that there are significantly more students in higher education. Enrollment has increased a lot. Only 7.7% of people in 1960 had graduated college, whereas 36% of people in 2019 have. This has put a lot of upward pressure on tuition, causing it to increase drastically. But accounting for enrollment growth alone still leaves much of the growth of college tuition prices unexplained. To be fair, as much as some people would like to see student loan forgiveness, they don't really take it a step farther and think exactly how we would be able to get that done. For example, when politicians say,
"We are going to cancel all student debt in this country,"
they don't even exactly mean all the debt. Usually it means debt for people who fall under specific criteria, such as they can't pay it back but are stuck unable to go bankrupt. Some politicians, for example, just want to forgive $10,000 or $50,000 across the board. Others want you to have been paying on your student loans for about 10 years and the rest gets forgiven. As far as I'm aware, it never was about removing all student loan debt. This is because most people are still surprisingly able to pay back their loans. Also, generally, most degrees still offer more benefit than the debt you will incur. There's also the argument that if the taxpayer is going to foot the bill, should they? Should we levy a tax on those who didn't go to college to pay for the debt? Or should it be applied to everyone, or just the wealthy, or corporations? And if so, how are they responsible? Should people who have already paid off their student loans be made to pay other people's debt too? Shouldn't we make college institutions responsible in some way? If so, could they afford it? Would they need to raise tuition prices to cover the cost? These are all tricky questions, but no matter how you approach the problem, three things are clear. One, at the rate the student loan debt crisis is increasing is clearly unsustainable. Two, there will be overspill from the debt, and people who are in no way responsible will have to pay for some or all of it. 3. Forgiving student loan debt would only be a band-aid fix and not a long-term solution. People from Elizabeth Warren to Ben Shapiro have given their opinion on the matter, but one question nobody is asking is, even if all student loan debt was forgiven, all 1.7 trillion of it, how would that prevent the student loan debt from ballooning again? There has been talk from many think tanks to make universities responsible for their students' employment and ability to find a job in the field they want to go into, either by taking money out of their endowments. And if you want to know more about endowments, Jake Tran did a phenomenal video on this. Just feel free to check it out. We'll put a link in the description. So we could take money out of their endowments to cover the debt, or simply have colleges be more selective about who they accept, so that the field said person goes into actually has good job prospects. This right here would actually help to fix a lot of the problem. If we just change the incentives for what universities have to do to get student loan money, instead of just accept everyone and encourage them to get useless degrees. Another option, and it's a spicy one, I don't really see anyone talking about it, is we could end the whole student loan program altogether. And the financial aid program. After all, these programs are what let colleges milk the government dry of taxpayer dollars. And also, these programs are what have caused tuition to explode, since college can charge whatever they want because you'll just borrow more and can't go bankrupt. College would see a massive drop in enrollment. They'd have to cut tuition and a lot of bloated administration in order to get their seats filled. There also needs to be more of a push for people to look into trade unions and vocational jobs, because we need to get out of this mindset that going to college is the only pathway to success. Or, work with me on this, what if we do nothing? What if we just let things continue? Then, two scenarios will likely play out.